Treasures of Sudanese Sufism, a journey through heritage books and manuscripts. Welcome dear viewers, and I'm so delighted to welcome you to the final episode of this series dedicated to introducing طبقات ودضيف, the first Sudanese authored book to document significant aspects of Sudan's religious, social and cultural history. In this episode, we highlight the views of a number of Sudanese intellectuals and researchers regarding this remarkable work. We will explore the diverse opinions it has inspired, ranging from praise for its historical and cultural significance to criticism of certain aspects of its methodology, in an effort to present a balanced reading that reflects the book's enduring place in Sudanese intellectual history. Welcome once again, dear audience, and stay with us. So my pleasure once again, dear audience, and here I would like in this encounter with Muhammad Nur ودضيف, with his ever celebrated historical record, طبقات, I would like to conclude, and in our conclusion, I would like to share some views of some Sudanese educated researchers and writers' views on the book. So here I would like to start. Since its appearance and circulation within the scholarly and cultural circles, the book commonly known as طبقات ودضيف has generated considerable debate among Sudanese intellectuals and researchers. Opinions concerning its scholarly and historical value have generally fallen into two principal camps. One group of critics and scholars has raised a number of reservations about the book, particularly regarding its historical methodology and its extensive reliance on oral tradition. They argue that the prominent inclusion of saints, miracles, legends, and popular narratives affects the precision of its historical documentation when judged according to modern academic standards. Others have criticized the limited chronological and geographical scope of its biographies, as well as the predominance of a Sufi perspective in the presentation of personalities and events. By contrast, another group of researchers, historians, and Sudanese intellectuals regards the book as the foundational text in the history of Sudanese writing. Some even consider it the earliest written work to offer a comprehensive portrayal of Sudanese religious, social, and cultural life over several centuries, reflecting the values, intellectual traditions, and spiritual outlook of Sudanese society. The book has also been praised as a unique historical and literary document and perceives the biographies of scholars, senates, jurists, And poets, while recording important aspects of everyday life, social relationships, and form of popular religious practices. For this reason, it has become an indispensable source for scholars of Sudanese history, cultural anthropology, and Sufi studies. From this perspective, طبقات ودضيف is far more than a collection of biographies and hagiographies. Rather, it has become the subject of extensive intellectual and cultural debate, attracting the attention of historians, writers, journalists, and researchers whose opinions range from admiration to criticism, depending on their methodological and intellectual approaches. In this episode, we present a selection of these views and assessments expressed by Sudanese intellectuals, historians, writers, journalists, and researchers concerning both the book and its author, thereby shedding further light on its historical and intellectual significance within Sudanese cultural consciousness. So as you listen the audience in this episode, I would like to share some views that have been expressed by researchers, by educated Sudanese intellectuals, journalists regarding the book of طبقات. And as you listen, their views ranging from appreciation and praising to criticism. Let us go, and here we have among us the earliest writers to comment on ودضيف's book was the author of كتاب الشونة, Sheikh Ahmed ibn al-Hajj Awali, who described the book as the learned, and he described the writer as the learned and meticulous scholar, the godly master, the Sheikh of Islam, and the unrivaled scholar of his age, highlighting his distinguished scholarly and religious standing and the esteem he enjoyed among his contemporaries. To quote him, the guardian of the legal school and the Sharia, the meticulous and authoritative scholar, the godly master, the Sheikh of Islam, the unparalleled figure of his age. So this is a writer of كتاب الشونة praising the author himself. I'm referring here to Muhammad Nur ودضيف, who was praised, a source of praising from the first ever Sudanese writer himself, and that is أحمد الحاج أبو علي, كاتب الشونة. Furthermore, I would like the audience to share another view, and this time comes from Professor Yusuf Fadl Hassan, who, as you know, is the first editor of the very same book. So I would like to share his views in this concern. طبقات ودضيف is a faithful mirror of the religious, spiritual, cultural, and social life of the Sudanese people, and an authentic record of their religious beliefs during that period. Regardless of our personal assessment of those beliefs, the author faithfully recorded the reports that had become widely transmitted without subjecting them to criticism or commentary, remaining throughout an honest narrator. Although his accounts include superstition, folklore, miracles, and extraordinary claims attributed to Sufi Shuyukh, claim that neither reason nor religion can readily accept. They nevertheless perceive invaluable information about the beliefs of the Sudanese people, beliefs that constitute the historical roots of many practices still found in Sudan today. Meanwhile, the researcher Tajassir Osman likewise argued that Muhammad Nur ودضيف expressed the distinctive character of the Sudanese experience through his composition of طبقات, distinguishing it from earlier works of the same genre such as الشعر طبقات and الطبقات الكبرى. According to Uthman, ودضيف was himself a direct product of the educational system established by the Sufi orders during the early French Sultanate. In this regard, Osman observes, when ودضيف wrote طبقات, he drew upon the established tradition of historical writing in the Islamic world in terms of its general form, as seen in works such as الطبقات الكبرى and الشعران's طبقات and Senate's righteous men. However, he gave full consideration to Sudan's own particular circumstances rather than merely repeating what had already been recorded in earlier works. He documented the history of Sudanese Senate, scholars and poets, thereby producing a distinctly Sudanese work that offers invaluable insights into the country's social, economic, political, literary, artistic, scholarly and religious history. He even incorporated the Sudanese vernacular spoken at the time. Still the speech to Osman, ودضيف was profoundly local in orientation, yet it is precisely this local character that made his work one of the most important sources for studying Sudanese history during that period. In this sense, he was the product of the educational system developed by the people of the French Sultanate, an authentic system shaped by the needs and realities of Sudanese society. The audience, I would like to reminding you that I'm presenting Sudanese researchers, writers, intellectuals' views on طبقات ودضيف and here I would like to share another view comes from the researcher Muhammad Jamal al-Din. So the researcher Muhammad Jamal al-Din argues that طبقات represented a historical illumination directed to the people themselves, a truly independent public sphere. In his view, ودضيف became for the first time in medieval Sudanese history an independent authority writing outside the framework of official power. According to him, this is precisely the secret behind the enduring controversy surrounding طبقات. It was neither a product of state institutions nor merely an opposition text. Rather, it possessed an independent authority of its own. Jamal al-Din further explains that طبقات was written in the language of ordinary people. It speaks of their concerns, convey their perceptions, ideas, dreams, imaginations, illusions, weaknesses, sorrows, and inherited legends. In the fragmented historical environment of the time, it was exceptionally rare for someone to write in the language of the people and for the people, rather than in the language of the rulers, sultans, kings, or administrative institutions. For these reasons, Jamal ad-Din concludes, طبقات possesses a remarkable simplicity, creativity, and authenticity that may appear almost naive, though it is anything but naive. It simply mirrors its historical moment with extraordinary fidelity. The audience is still quoting and sharing Sudanese researchers, historians, and writers and journalists' views on طبقات وضيف الله. And in this part of the episode, I would like to share the views comes from the Sudanese distinguished journalist Amal Abbas. So in our views, in طبقات وضيف الله, you may encounter things that you would describe as mythical or unscientific. Yet, they were the reality of that period and reflected the conventions of its people. We should also remember that this era witnessed momentous events in the world history. The fall of Al-Andalus, for example, was no ordinary event in either human or Islamic history. Our approach to طبقات is therefore a crucial issue in defining our relationship with our heritage. The French Sultanate was one of the longest historical periods shaping the Sudanese personality as we know it today. By reading accounts of senates and their miracles, we gain insight into the mentality of the people, their understanding of religion, and the interaction between the ancient civilizations of Nubia, Marwi, Alwa, Makoria, and the Islamic culture introduced by the Sufis. Reflecting on the approach of Tajuddin al-Buhari in presenting the Sufi path only reinforces the importance of continuing the search for a clear definition of Sudanese identity. In an article published on Sudan Nile website entitled المئوية الثانية لوظيف الله, the researcher, writer and diplomat Dr. Khaled Farah describes Muhammad Nur al-Wadif Allah as the Jabarti of Sudan, comparing his historical role to that of the celebrated historian Abdurrahman al-Jabarti in documenting social, religious and political developments. He also emphasizes the profound influence of طبقات on Sudanese academic and literary scholarship, noting that it has shaped historical research, folklore studies, linguistics, anthropology, fiction, theater, poetry, and the visual arts. To quote him, whatever the case, Wadif Allah will always remain the foremost of Sudanese writers, or if you prefer, the Jabarti of Sudan. His طبقات will continue to serve as the treasury of Sudanese culture and knowledge before the emergence of modern state. He deserves to be honored by the Sudanese nation, historians, writers, intellectuals, scholars, jurists, and Sufis of every orientation. The influence of Wadif Allah and طبقات upon generations of Sudanese academics and creative writers has been immense, extending across the disciplines of history, folklore, linguistics, anthropology, the novel, theater, poetry, and the Khartoum School of Visual Arts. Similarly, the Sudanese Islamic thinker and former minister Dr. Ghazi Salahuddin offers a reflective interpretation of the book. I'm referring to Book of طبقات, stating, before attempting to interpret this story, I must stress that الطبقات should not be read as a book whose contents are to be judged simply as true or false, nor as a source for deriving religious rulings. Rather, it should be read as a vision that transcends ordinary realism. Transcends ordinary realism, a work through which one may examine the psychological and intellectual formation of Central Sudan over the past 5 centuries. From another hand, the audience, here we have another opposing view to the very same book, that is a book of طبقات, and our source here is the Sudanese intellectual Haidar Ibrahim. So the Sudanese intellectual Haidar Ibrahim adopts a more critical position towards the book. In his article, سينار تزييف التاريخ، احتفال ب500 سنة من الركود. The article written in the context of the 2017 celebration of Sinnar as the capital of Islamic culture, Ibrahim re-examines Sudanese heritage through a critical lens. He classifies طبقات ودضيف as a work dominated by legendary narratives and questions the intellectual and scholarly contributions of the figures associated with what is commonly termed popular Islam, according to the authorities responsible for the celebration. To quote him, can an Islamic system truly accommodate all the myths, miracles, supernatural feats, and saintly legends that fill طبقات وضيف Allah? What genuine contributions to Islamic jurisprudence or intellectual life were made by the Fugara scattered throughout Sudan? Did they produce legal treatises and theological work comparable to those of Timbuktu? Did they leave writings comparable to Ibn Arabi on the doctrine of the unity of being, or were they content with Mukhtasar Khalil and Hizb al-Sayf? So as you listen to the audience, this is an opposing direction towards the book, and Dr. Haidar Ibrahim here attacking, by the way, not the authorities or the political authorities of 2017, which organize a festival entitled Sinnar, the capital of Islamic culture. So Ibrahim is not only criticizing the current regime, but he went further to attack Sufis, and he claimed that Sufis has no contribution at all. And in this regard, I would like to say a point that the thinker is so influenced with his stance from the political regime itself that organized the occasion, and at the same time his influence are impacted by the views of the Orientalist Spencer Birmingham in his attacking to the popular Islam as part of his book Islam in Sudan. So The audience, before to wrap up here, would like to share the sources that already have consulted to produce and to introduce this episode. يسير عثمان، كتاب لمحات من تاريخ مملكة الفونيا الاجتماعي، published in 2025, the third edition. محمد جمال الدين، طبقات وضيف الله وعلة التوثيق وأزمة الحضارة وتناقض الذات بتاريخ السودان الوسيط والحديث، published article on Sudanese online on 27 of October 2017. أمان عباس، حكاياتي مع كتاب الطبقات، published article on راكوبا 14 of February 2013. حيدر إبراهيم علي، سن أرتزي في التاريخ، احتفال ب500 سنة من الركود، publish article on Sudanese online. And then خالد محمد فرح، المئوية الثانية لوضيف الله، publish article on Sudan Nile 18 of May 2009. By this, the audience, I came to the end of the episode. Till seeing you in another episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.